Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this new edition of World Today, where we cover the latest news updates, headlines making news around the world. And we're joined today by Dr. Mdhat Khafagi, political analyst. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Sir, we'll start with the latest on Ahram Online, which is a third explosion has occurred near Cairo University. The bomb attack near the university's front gate and apparently targeted police. How do you see the repeated attacks on at the university, and since the start of the university specifically during the last 10 days?
I think the bomb of today is inside the university, not outside, and the goal of it is to let the students not come to the universities afraid of their lives, not outside the university. And I think what is going on now is no more a scientific approach to the problem. Especially in the universities, they know what is the scientific approach of the problem. Is that every specialist will gather together from different areas like psychology and psychiatry, and will put a solution or a strategy to confront these demonstrations. I think, from my point of view, we need to have a dialogue between the officers of the schools, of the universities, the dean and the vice dean and so forth, and some professors, to let these people to hear from these students what they want, and they will tell them that those who are arrested before, the judiciary is the one who is in charge, and we cannot do anything about it. As regards the ousting the military, what they call military regime, it is not of their business.
Right.
They can demonstrate outside the university. And what else, I think, what else will a good solution for this problem is to stop giving them free education in the university with a decree. A decree from the highest council of Egyptian universities that those students who are preventing the education and the function of the universities will lose their free education in the universities, and they have to pay 20 to 40,000 per year. So that will make the parents themselves will press on their sons and daughters to prevent them from demonstrations.
Right, sir. And moving on to another topic on Ahram Headline Online, UN envoy in Egypt discusses human rights conditions with Justice Minister. Justice Minister Mahfouz Saber met with Stavros Lambrinidis, the EU human rights representative, during his visit to Cairo, as the minister said that the image Western media organizations reflect regarding death sentences issued in Egypt is false. The visit comes ahead of Egypt's Universal Periodic Review set to take place at the United Nations Human Rights Council on November 5. Saber told Lambrinidis that there is a mix-up between the preliminary death sentences referred to Egypt's Grand Mufti and the ratified death sentences. Saber added that even though a large number of defendants have been recently referred to the Mufti to consider their death sentences, but the number of those who received final sentences is small. How do you see this, especially after President El-Sisi amended in September Article 78, which states that defendants accused of receiving funds with the purpose of harming the state are subject to being sentenced to life in prison or death?
Well, like any country, any body or organization who takes money from outside the country has to declare it. You don't have to have a permission for it or agreement for it, but they have to declare it so that the country itself or its highest authority will know what's going on. Even in the United States, you are not allowed to even enter to the United States was more than $10,000.
Right.
And if you have a bank account, they will monitor your bank account where the money is going. So this is legitimate, I think.
Right, and moving on to daily news, and the headline reads, "Man killed, woman and child injured in shooting in Egypt's North Sinai." A man was killed and a woman and young girl injured by gunmen on Tuesday in the North Sinai border town of Rafah. Eyewitnesses at the scene said that the man, 50 years old, was shot by unidentified assailants. The woman and the young girl were also hit during the shooting and transferred soon after to El Arish hospital. It's not clear whether the shooting was a militant attack or a feud between civilians. How could the military exercise Badr 2014 help to assert the ability of the armed forces to defend the violent attacks in Sinai?
Well, the problem in Sinai, the cause of these violent attacks is two things. The unemployment rate in the youth, which is about 40,000, and the other one is that they didn't receive any education. Illiterate, more than 90% illiterate, because these Bedouins are living in satellites, away from any city or town or village where there is schools. And they cannot travel for 10 or 15 miles to school. And so we have to find solution
to the education problem in these areas.
Yeah, I think what is needed, and I told the governor of North Sinai about it a few weeks ago, is that the most important thing which we can do in Sinai, North Sinai, is to make aquaculture for prawns with Saudi and Emirates companies, like the European company or so. We'll give them 100,000 acres on the north, on the Mediterranean, to make aquaculture for the prawns.
Right.
And this will employ about 100,000 of these youth, young people, and so they don't need any technology to do it, and so they can be employed very easy, because the high-tech companies, they don't accept these illiterate boys.
Right, and moving on to the Daily Star, and the headline reads, "Israeli minister airs Iran nuclear concerns at Pentagon." And the news itself reads, Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Yaalon said that he shared with his U.S. counterpart his country's concerns about the direction of talks between world powers and Iran on its nuclear program. In an audio message released by Yaalon's office after his meeting with Chuck Hagel at the Pentagon, Yaalon said they also talked about the conflicts in Iraq and Syria and the U.S.-Israel defense partnership. Expert-level talks between Iran and world powers are to be held in Vienna on Wednesday and Thursday, according to an Iranian official. Iran and the P5+1 group of nations, Britain, China, France, Russia, and the United States plus Germany, are seeking a comprehensive agreement over Tehran's nuclear program by November 24 deadline. How do you see the significance of the Israeli voice, especially that Netanyahu told Obama not to accept any Iranian deal that would allow Tehran to become a threshold nuclear power?
Well, I think Iran has a potential nuclear power now, because when there is dismantling or confiscation of the Soviet Union, many of the nuclear scientists of Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan and all this stuff went to Iran. And even Egypt, they came here for to have work with $3,000 per month, but Mubarak refused. And so I think they have nuclear capabilities. Even they may have nuclear bombs, really. And so they will never attack Iran, whether the United States or Israel, because if they attack Iran and Iran has a nuclear bombs, that will be a catastrophe. Because Israel will not stand except one or two nuclear bombs on Tel Aviv or Haifa or and so even the commanders who were going to hit back with a nuclear strike, they will not be there, and that's why Israel bought submarines, nuclear submarines, which was equipped with nuclear missiles, so that they will make a deterrent action if the authorities in Tel Aviv is no more existing. So they will not charge Iran. I doubt.
Right, and moving on to the World Bulletin, and the headline reads, Cairo denies launching new Syria initiative. And the news itself reads, high-level diplomatic sources denied reports that Cairo has launched a new initiative to resolve the crisis in Syria. The reports were published by several pan-Arab and international media outlets. Diplomatic sources expressed their surprise at the news and described it as illusory and untrustworthy. The report said several meetings had taken place at the foreign ministry in Cairo. However, the sources denied that any such meetings had taken place. The reports mentioned that the initiative aimed at reaching a political formula to solve the Syrian crisis and had ruled out a military solution, asserting that this would lead to the division of Syria and serve the interests of rebel groups such as IS. What could be the aim of these reports, especially that the Prime Minister Ibrahim Mahlab had earlier stated that Egypt has no plans to provide the U.S. with direct military assistance in its war against IS in Iraq and Syria?
If we see the one article last year, the end of last year in Foreign Affairs about Syria, they found that 25% of those opposition groups, military opposition in Syria, they are related to the Islamic militants, whether Muslim Brotherhood or ISIS, or it's the same.
Right.
And they found that if they allow them to oust Assad regime, they will take over Syria. And so the West, especially the United States, are against any assistance to those opposition, military opposition in Syria. That's why the war now is for more than 3 years. But it will come as a de facto solution when they will attack ISIS in Kobani or whatever it is. They will destroy and Syria and ISIS in Syria and in Iraq. They will weaken ISIS and maybe demolish it. And so the Syrian opposition will take over, and so will be a better solution, I think. So they will agree about that. And they are trying now to train Syrian opposition, military opposition, which is Syrian.
Right, and moving on to the Washington Times, and the headline reads, UN warns purely military response in Syria could fuel extremism. And the news itself reads, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon warned that a solely military response to the threat of IS group in Syria could fuel the radicalization of more Sunni armed groups and spark more violence. IS has seized swaths of territory in Iraq and Syria as being targeted by US-led airstrikes in both countries. The group has been crucifying and beheading prisoners and ordering non-Muslims and Shiites to convert or die. The Sunni militant group is battling Kurdish forces for control of the Syrian town of Kobani at the Turkish border. How could the UN efforts help in reducing the Syrian people struggle and sufferings?
Well, the problem is that the ISIS, when it came to Syria and Jabhat al-Nusra and all this stuff, it makes the problem very complicated. So that the West, what I told you before, that the West is not willing to assist the Syrian military opposition to take over the Assad regime. Even they think that Assad regime is better than the Muslim Brotherhood or ISIS. I think ISIS is doing many mistakes. The first mistake is that it attacked a Sunni faction who are the Kurds in Syria, and so they are inviting more enemies to attack them. And I think it will also ISIS is trained for guerrilla fight. But in a regular army type of war, they will fail and they will lose everything. And so even the Mosul will be taken from them with a war, because they are concentrating now in Mosul. And
this is true.
And they are arranging now in Iraq to take it over, and they will be. I think what they said, Obama or Joe Biden, that it will take 20 years is false, and they make it feel better. But they know that it will not take few months to attack them, to kill them all.
Right, and moving on to Global Post, and the headline reads, Sudan's Bashir chosen by ruling party as candidate for 2015 elections. And the news itself reads, Sudan's ruling party chose President Omar al-Bashir as its candidate for next year's presidential vote, making it almost certain that he will not step aside but extend his rule after 25 years in power. The 70-year-old Bashir, wanted on charges of genocide and war crimes by the International Criminal Court, had previously indicated he would not run for another term in elections scheduled for April 2015. He had also pledged to hold a national dialogue before the vote, but the few active opposition movements in Sudan seem to have already lost hope of any change in the political climate. How do you see the upcoming Sudanese elections?
Well, I think Bashir is defending his neck, really. Because if he gets out of power, he will be in prison. And I think that from the point of view of Sudanese themselves, this is a wrong move to nominate himself as the president. Because there is now many states in Sudan are willing to separate, like southern Sudan, Sudan like Darfur, Kordofan, and even the Blue Nile area. And so it is better for him to set aside and let somebody else, let a democratic regime like that of al-Mahdi, Saad al-Mahdi, come over.
So do you think
they will unite the state again?
So do you think that this will take place? I mean, there is some hope that this will take place.
No, I think he is jeopardizing the unity of Sudan if he continues to nominate himself as a president. This is wrong.
And what do you think of the issue of reuniting Sudan?
From southern Sudan, that is difficult. That's impossible. To unite what is left is Kordofan and Darfur, because there is a lot of movement now, and it is helped by others to separate Darfur, because there is a lot of uranium, and also there is oil in it, so that they would like to separate.
Right, sir. And moving on to the Gulf today, and the headline reads, Libya's government says forces will retake capital. And the news itself reads, Libya's internationally recognized government said that its forces are getting ready to take the capital after Islamist allied militias from the western city of Misrata took over Tripoli in August. Prime Minister Abdullah al-Thani's government said in a statement that it gave orders to the government forces to advance toward Tripoli to liberate it and to free it from the grip of the militias. It urged youth in different neighborhoods to join ranks with the forces to liberate themselves and their city. It also urged its civilian supporters to abstain from revenge attacks and to hand over any captured militiamen to the army forces. Meanwhile, the elected Libyan parliament and al-Thani's government have been forced to operate from the distant coastal city of Tobruk. How could be the consequences of this on the Libyan community itself?
Well, the military militia, which are against the official government, they don't know that they will not win this war except if the people like them. And they are making everything for people to hate them. And even if they take over Libya, they will not be able to administer the country. Like when Taliban took over Afghanistan for 5 years, and they ruined the whole country. No education, no roads, no electricity. And these militias, they don't have any experience to run a country at all.
Right.
And the people there, apparently, they don't like them. Else they could have taken the whole country.
Of course. So what do you think is the way out for the Libyan people?
I think this is a civil war in a sense, with some sort of militia, military militia, wants to get over the country, but they will not be allowed either from the outside states or even the Libyan themselves.
Right, sir. And moving on to the Independent, and the headline reads, Ukraine's October 26 snap parliamentary elections. And the news itself reads, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko ordered a snap parliamentary election for October 26 with the aim of clearing out loyalists of ousted Moscow-backed leader Viktor Yanukovych and producing an assembly with a pro-Europe majority. The election is also aimed at securing further legitimacy for Kiev's new pro-Western direction after Euromaidan protests last winter, broadly supported by the West, but denounced by Russia as a coup after Yanukovych's fall. How could the upcoming elections affect the situation?
Well, the Ukrainians really, they disliked the Russian because they felt so much sad and miserable with Russian occupation, or they call occupation.
Right.
Although they, at the time of Khrushchev, they say that there is no difference between Ukrainian and Bolshevik, but really there was a difference. And so they will also the industrial base of Ukraine was not developed at all. For example, you will not find any goods made in Ukraine or something.
Right.
And so it is underdeveloped. And they think if they relate themselves to the Western Europe, they will get more technology. They will prosper like Poland and Czechoslovakia and Finland. They will prosper. And so they are looking for prosperity. That's why even Putin, he imitated his regime with the old Soviet regime. But there is no real democracy in Russia now, United Russia.
And how do you see the U.S. stance from what's taking place over there?
Well, they're afraid. The U.S. is pushing Germany and the rest of Western countries, Western Europe, to get in confrontation with Russia. And not, they are afraid of confrontation with Russia, United States, because they have many nuclear weapons.
Right. Dr. Mdhat Khafagi, political analyst, many thanks for your input.
Thank you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, with this we wrap up this edition of World Today. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for the top stories coming up in the minute.